Hello listeners, you're listening to 18 Minutes with Satyal and Silwal. I'm Satyal.
And I'm Silwal, and we're a weekly podcast from the Himalayas.
When it's Tuesday and it's 7:30, you know it's time for perspectives, conversations and stories.
Welcome to the 69th episode. Now you can make all the funs that you want to make about this episode, but today is a more serious topic because Satyal is again my guru, because if you've listened back to one of our previous episodes we've done on minimalism, and I learned to say minimalism without making a lot of mistakes. So today is again Satyal sir being our guru, and he's going to teach us about mindfulness in a more practical manner, I think.
Yeah, that's the aim, and we'll try to not keep it as serious as Silwal mentioned. Keep it as practical, as relevant as possible. But okay, one trivia question for Silwal before we begin today's episode. This was based on a research done by Harvard University. So if you were to measure how present a human being is at the present moment, what percentage would you give?
I would say they're present 20% of the time.
20%?
Yeah, I'm very narcissistic when it comes to this. Because as far as I know, because we have a very low attention span, research from 1992 to 2016 has shown that our attention span is decreasing every year. And I would say that people are not present. They will tend to think about other things, and they're not as mindful, or they're not as present.
Okay, but that was very pessimistic view that you presented. It's actually almost double. So
40%.
Everything's relative, right? So it's around 46.9% of the time people are actually doing something other than what they're actually doing. So that actually the mind is wandering 46.9% of the time. So this means that, you know, in your waking hours, almost half of the time you're actually thinking of something else rather than what you're doing. So this was a research done by Matthew A. Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert from Harvard University. So based on this...
Did they do their masters?
Not everyone is like this. So what they're saying is a human mind is a wandering mind, and a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So a lot of times what you're doing right now doesn't really matter. It's what you're thinking at this moment that probably determines your happiness more than what you're actually doing right now. So this was a research that these guys did.
But what if I was thinking of a happy moment?
Yeah, then that means you will be happy if you're thinking of the happy moment. But then because you're present only 47, you're less than 47% of the time, that probably means that you're either in the past or the future. And we generally tend to associate thinking about the past with feeling depressed and feeling anxious when you're thinking about the future. So if you were to define mindfulness yourself based on what you've heard so far, what would you say?
I think being present 100% of the time. Ouch!
Nice. So it basically means being in the present moment without preference or judgment. So if you have certain preferences as to how the present moment should be, then you're again making comparisons. And if you're judging it, then you probably are not really happy with how the present moment is right now. So,
okay, so I just want to stop you right here before you continue on with mindfulness and all, because we've always had this in our mind, and the way we live, we're either looking forward towards the future or looking backward at our past, and we're somewhere in the middle. We have a step forward and a step backward there. This is how we've been grown up, and the things that you're telling me about being 100% present, the only times I've actually felt 100% present is probably when I'm in the mountains and I can, when there is nothing else to see. But the hustling, bustling, busy life of the city life that we are living in, is that really a bad thing when it comes to mindfulness and not being mindful about your present moment? So, for an example, wouldn't it be better if my mind was wandering around different things, or I was multitasking in different ways when I'm in this big-ass jam in Jamal where the roads are all puddly, and, rather than being present about the horns and pissed off people besides me, wouldn't that make sense to not be mindful at times?
Well, firstly, you would have to be mindful that there's a traffic jam and the vehicle's not going to go any forward than that. then you'll probably switch your objective towards something else.
Okay.
So let's say we're doing this podcast and there's something else to look forward to at the end of it.
Yes, I know what Satyal is looking forward to at the end.
So if I'm already thinking about that, then I'm not really in this moment.
Okay.
So this would affect my attention span, it would affect my focus, and obviously affect the quality of the podcast. So if you're not really in the present moment, then you're probably not giving your best. So at times when you're at work or you're with somebody you love, if you don't make them feel that you're giving your 100%, and if you're multitasking, using your phone or doing something else, then that probably affects that present moment. Because if you really think about it, nothing really happens in the past or the future. Everything happens in the present moment. The same present moment goes on to be the past, and something in the future will only happen in the present moment. But yes, I do agree that not all the times we can be 100%. But rather, it's probably more about increasing our level of attention and focus rather than aiming for that 100%. Because if you really think about it, being in the present moment is one of the hardest things you'll ever do.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a very difficult skill.
Because if I think about it, I can count to you the times that I've actually felt present. And that too, when I'm traveling or when I'm in the... there's moments when I've been like, fuck man, I'm alive. And I know where I am right now, and this only comes to me when I'm way outside society. So yeah, perhaps being more mindful in my daily life could help me do a lot of things. But yeah.
But okay, you've said that you don't really find yourself in the present. How does that affect you on a personal level? When you're, maybe when you're multitasking or in your past or your future, does that make you more anxious or depressed, or how do you go about it?
Well, in terms of, because I'm a procrastinator, I'm always anxious about my deadlines, and I'm like, okay, I need to get that done, but I'm not doing that right now, I'm doing something else. Perhaps my efficiency and my effectiveness towards the certain thing that I'm doing at that very present might not get the due diligence that it requires. But a lot of times, I'm being very narcissist in this episode, but a lot of times it's okay, because if I'm anxious about something, then I have something to look forward to. There is a goal, or there is something that I need to get it done. It actually makes me aware of the things that I have to do rather than the things that I'm doing. So yeah, maybe there's a balance. Maybe it might be better to increase from 46.7 to 60 or 70.
What you're saying makes sense. Let me connect that with terms used in mindfulness. So there are two modes. One's called the doing mode and one's called the being mode. Because when I talk about mindfulness and I say present moment, then just like you've asked, people might ask me, then should we never look forward to the future? Should we always be in the present? That's not the point. Yes, we need to set goals, and doing mode is a lot to do with the goal that the mind has set, because obviously your goals are against, are made by your future version of yourself, against what's expected, desired, or feared. So let's say if you don't look forward to your 4 years in college, at the end of it, graduation, then you will not have that urgency to do your assignments at all. So you need to look forward to your future. That is all very true. But then being mode is opposite to doing mode, where being mode is more about being in the present moment, being more accepting. So the differences would be, in doing mode, your mind will set certain goals, right? And doing mode is great, but for as long as they are goals that you can attain. The moment you start, trying to get something that is out of your control, then that is where problem starts. And in that moment, you need to switch to your being mode and accept that certain things are out of your control, certain things are just the way they are, and then hence you can set new goals and come back to your doing mode again. So it might be a little confusing. I want to share an example and then maybe it'll make sense. So let's say Silwal here starts a living relationship with his girlfriend. I don't know if he has a girlfriend, but let's say he decides to have a live-in relationship, right? Now, the girl doesn't really know Silwal, so agrees to it. And then the next day, he has his breakfast and he just leaves the apartment. And the dishes are yet to be done.
I have a girlfriend and now I have an apartment as well. This is the best life ever.
The dishes are yet to be done, right? Now, Silwal leaves. Now the girlfriend's idealized version of Silwal will do the dishes, he's easy to live with, right? Now the reality is he's not. He's just left all the dishes to her. Now if she's in doing mode, then she will compare what Silwal should be like with how he is, and she'll start having problems. She has to accept the fact that Silwal has left the dishes. Now that's reality, right? So that's going back to being mode, accepting things as they are, and then maybe she can set a new goal. The new goal probably could be to kill Silwal after he comes back. So a lot of times it's not to say that you shouldn't be looking forward to your future or have goals or be ambitious, but just that you should be aware of what things lie within your circle of influence and which things don't.
So this confuses me in a bit, and I'd ask the listeners to think upon as well. So the thing that you just said about resetting your goal based on what you can influence and what you can do, sometimes would it then be a moment where you start setting your goals or underset your goals, where we talk about how we are filled with potential and there's a lot of things. I get it. Well, the example that you gave where you cannot influence the other person's life, like in that case, like you cannot expect me to start doing the dishes right away. Maybe perhaps you might want to remind me to do the dishes and talk to me about it. But sometimes would another person, my next girlfriend, who's now living with me in that apartment because the previous girlfriend just left me. So she's like, perhaps she doesn't do the dishes at all. And based on your example, what if she just undermines herself and be like, okay, this is not the person to do his dishes. So wouldn't that be undersetting or not reaching the potential or not talking out too?
So what you're saying is then if she was like to be very mindful, then she would probably not talk to you at all, and then she would have to go through all that problems of doing the dishes.
Not problems in a sense, but the most simplest example is maybe like you give an exam, the marks is 100, right? So maybe you set a goal saying I want to get 98 in this subject, but then being mindful, based on your, because Satyal is very poor at mathematics. He's like, okay, man, I don't know, derivatives and all these things. So you now underset a goal saying maybe it's just okay that I pass. So
no, the idea is first to accept that you don't know derivatives.
Okay.
A lot of people can't accept the fact. Only when you accept, because the present moment is that I don't know derivatives, right? I accept it. Once I've accepted it, I'm in being mode. Then my new goal could be, maybe I would want tuition for this.
Okay.
Or instead of just saying, I don't know this at all, so I'm just going to leave it, this is life, right? Once I accept it, then I can move on.
Okay.
Take an example of a relationship. Once a breakup happens, there's usually one party that's always trying to cling on to the person who has given the breakup. We've all seen this. Hopefully we've not been this person, but we've always been that. That is a moment of delusion. That's not being able to accept the present moment, because your doing mode says, how can somebody do this to me? How can somebody ditch me? This is not right. This cannot happen, right? That's a fear that you have. That's not what is desired. And the moment you see them with somebody after a few weeks, or you finally realize that the ship has sailed, then you accept it, and then probably a new mode is going out again, dating again, or improving yourself again so that this never happens again. So do you understand it better now?
All right.
It's not undermining yourself, but then probably accepting your weaknesses, if they are as such, accepting the present moment as it is, because you cannot really change that moment. But once you've accepted, then you change your ways and then go back to doing more and change your goal again. So this constant switching between doing and being mode.
Yeah, just to get you out of that corner. When was the last time you were in a relationship?
I don't know, man. Let's not go there. So you remember, maybe somebody said this to you in your childhood. Just said, if you're angry, just take a 10-second pause.
Yeah.
So just count backwards from 10 to 1 and then react.
Yeah.
So all that while they're talking about being mindful. So when I look back,
take
that's 3
deep breaths.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you just had to understand mindfulness in the most simplest way, it is just to take a pause. Because when you take a pause, you accept things, you accept the present moment, and then you can probably change your goal or change your circle of influences. That is the simplest way to understand mindfulness. And just adding on to that, when you sit down to do mindfulness meditation, so a lot of people meditate, right? So what they're doing in essence is they're just, flexing their, I would say, calm muscles. Because when you sit down to meditate, then you let go of all the urges to get up, do something, because you realize that everybody is doing something at this moment of time. You sit down, you slow down. So this sort of practice you cultivate in your day-to-day relationship. So if somebody shouts at you, yells at you, you learn to take a pause. The other person might not take a pause, but you learn to take a pause, and you're the calm one who handles the relationship better. So doing a meditation is one way of cultivating mindfulness. And yeah, that's one way of doing it.
I'm just reminded of this that story when we heard in childhood where there was a husband and a wife and they used to always fight, and then because they're always angry and someone infuriates the other person, and then she goes to the doctor and she's like, I'll give you a medicine, and the medicine is whenever he starts shouting or whenever there's an issue there or an anger, just drink water, don't swallow it and put it in your mouth.
Right.
Perhaps
taking a pause.
That is taking a pause.
Right.
So yeah.
So all it allows you to do is to be aware of your thoughts. So when you're angry, you're aware that you're angry, and that's just a thought. You don't have to give in to that anger and lash out. So you're just learning to take a pause. I know this sounds very simple, but it's probably one of the hardest things to do. But then recently, if you go through the Harvard Business Reviews and all, they've considered mindfulness as one of the most important skills you can have. Because only when you have control over your thoughts, emotions, then you can go out and actually execute whatever other skill set that you have. So you might be brilliant, but then if you go around being very angry or being very anxious, then it does no benefit to anybody.
I think what I get out of it is because, as we said in the beginning of the podcast, we're either too forward into the future or too backwards in the future. Maybe it's just about recalibrating your time and trying to bring you in the present moment and just be like, fuck man, this is the moment.
Yeah, this is reality, right? If there's something that I can do about it, fine, let me do it. If not, let me accept things as they are, and now let me change my ways around it so that I can expand my circle of influence and let go of things that I cannot control. So when people sit down to meditate, they're not trying to achieve anything, just learning to let go. Because a lot of times we try to influence things that are out of our control, and that is where our biggest problem lies. So mindfulness probably is all about letting go and nothing else.
Alright, so that's one lesson that I can get, because I've always found meditation as this boring thing where I see someone just breathing in and out, and I don't know if they're awake or they're sleeping or...
They're just aware of their breathing.
Okay.
They're just aware of their thoughts because they're just learning to take that pause that we've talked about. Okay, Silwal, so we talked about mindfulness and meditation.
Don't give me homework, please. But having said that, I think I do get more about mindfulness rather than this being this cult thing that hippies are following. It actually has a lot of scientific reasonings behind it, and it has base to what we're trying to achieve, to make our lives more happier, to make our lives more better, and to improve the vector of life, as we call it, trying to improve that quality. So maybe,
So if you have any queries, you can comment below. I'd be happy to answer those for you. Okay. And we're back again next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. And one last thing.
It's never too late to start.
Two friends having